Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Run in the Paint recap. We're back with more second round action in the postseason and a couple more incredible outcomes, historic outcomes from the two games last night. Before we get into the video, leave a like for all these NBA postseason videos. It's been so much fun to cover the postseason so far. It has been historic with so many crazy things happening across the board, and that continued here last night. Again, if you want to skip ahead to the game that you care about a little bit more and want to hear me talk about more, you can check in the description down below. There will be timestamps for you to move right ahead. But let's get into the action from last night, starting off with game two between the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics after New York came back and took game one from Boston in overtime after the Celtics had the 20-point lead in the third quarter. New York comes back thanks to their defense, also the Celtics jacking up a bunch of threes, and Jalen Brunson going crazy down the stretch and getting the Knicks back in the game and eventually winning it for them. And in this game, it was kind of more of the same. The New York Knicks actually incredibly took game two 91-90 and have a 2-0 series lead in this Eastern Conference semifinal. Now, in this game, I mean, the Celtics came out and they looked like they wanted to make a statement. They came out the way that you're supposed to when you're down 1-0. It was very similar to how Cleveland came out against Indiana in game two and just absolutely stifling on the defensive end. New York could not get anything to go down to start this game. They only scored 13 points in this first quarter. Um, and they only had like 4 points throughout the first 7 to 7.5 minutes of this game. And the Celtics were just able to get really whatever they wanted in the mid-range and painted area, knocking down a few threes, but again, struggling from three. We'll get to that, of course, because that's a big talking point. But Celtics, that first quarter that they had was just huge. I mean, it propelled them to the start that they got off to, and then they were able to sustain it throughout the rest of the second and third quarters. The lead was as big as 20 in the third quarter. And in the fourth quarter, it just felt like, man, New York Knicks are just they're just not having it tonight. Things are just not going their way because to start the fourth quarter, even when the Knicks were first trying to make their comeback, the Celtics, even on their misses, were getting offensive rebounds and getting points right off of them. Kristaps Porzingis got a putback dunk. Peyton Pritchard hit a few threes that kept the lead up to 14. The score was 84-70 Boston with I believe 7.5 minutes remaining in this game. Yes, it was. Actually, it was 84-68 after Pritchard made his second big three of the fourth quarter. I mean, this was incredible. All of the Celtic points to start the fourth quarter were off of offensive rebounds and turnovers. The Celtics could not score in the half court in the entire fourth quarter. And once the Knicks got on the defensive boards and kept up their half court defense, and the Celtics kept on missing those perimeter outside shots, New York finally started to get some offense from Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges, you look at his stat line, another subpar game when you just take a look at the numbers: 14 points on 6 of 18 shooting, 2 of 8 from 3. But he scored all 14 of those points in the fourth quarter to lead the Knicks comeback in the fourth quarter. He was 6 for 10 from the field in the quarter, so he was 0 for 8 prior to that. And he was just absolutely fantastic. He got a couple of his, classic mid range pull up shots to go down to start the fourth quarter. And that just led him to be engaged on the defensive end. And even though their top three guys in their starting lineup, or as far as their backcourt goes, Brunson, Bridges, and then even OG Anunoby, all three of them struggled mightily from the field. The Celtics did a great job defensively again throughout the game of guarding the Knicks. But despite them struggling from the field, they all had a super positive impact on the ball game. You got a bounce back game from Karl Anthony Towns after being in foul trouble for much of game one. 21 points and 17 huge rebounds in this game, goes 9 for 16 from the field, and he only took 1 3. He was at the basket, attacking the paint. And then Josh Hart hitting 3 threes was huge. He had 23 points to lead the game in scoring, as wild enough as that is to say. But even their bench came through with Mitchell Robinson and Miles McBride making a huge impact. Mitchell Robinson They didn't go to the Hacker Robinson as much in this game because they saw how much it kind of threw off the rhythm. So the Celtics, that is, it threw off their rhythm on the offensive end. Mitchell Robinson airballed his only free throw that he got. But he was an incredible impact in this game. He was a plus 19 off the bench. He had 8 rebounds in 22 minutes, three of them on the offensive end, three steals as well. And then Deuce McBride had 5 big points and a steal. He had a nice impact on the game as well. I mean, everyone for the Knicks just contributed in this game. And for the Boston Celtics, really wasn't that big of the case on their end. Jason Tatum, back to back stinker games. He goes for, I think he only had maybe 1 point in the first half. I think I saw on TNT on the broadcast, they showed that Jason Tatum in the first half, yes, 2 points, 1 for 7 from the field. And then in the second half, Jalen Brown had 3 points on 1 for 7 from the field. So when both your superstar players are each taking turns on having garbage halves and subpar, or yeah, garbage halves, and they alternate having between having garbage halves and then subpar in the others, it's just not a good recipe. Tatum goes 5 for 19. Jalen Brown was 8 for 23 with 20 points. He was a big reason why the Celtics were able to get off to a good start on the offensive end of the floor. He was getting mid-range shots, three-pointers when they needed him to, to start the game, but just not able to sustain it. Al Horford in the starting lineup for Porzingis, who plays limited minutes again, dealing with that nagging illness. Porzingis again was good on the offensive boards, but he didn't play that great against the Knicks double big lineup. Al Horford goes 2 for 11. Derek White goes 6 for 17, 3 for 11 from three. Pritchard 3 for 9 from the field, all those from downtown. But again, the threes that he made were backbreakers, but not enough to just keep the Knicks from winning this game. And you know, Celtics in this game go 36% from the field, 10 for 40 from three. First two games of this series, they're 25 for 100 from 3-point range. That is abysmal. I mean, that is the worst 3-point shooting in a two-game stretch in playoff history. And you could say, if you're the Celtics, all right, we shot this poorly in the first two games, taking a majority of our shots from 3-point range, and we lost by a combined 4 points on Mikal Bridges' huge defensive stops. Um, but if you can, I just don't think they can keep going into these games with this game plan of just firing away from three. Because again, when you live by the three, you die by the three. And right now, through two games of this series, they're dying by the three. After they had that 84-68 lead with about 8:40 remaining in the game, the Celtics made one basket the rest of the game. In the final 8 minutes and 40 seconds, Boston had one field goal, and it was a Jason Tatum dunk in the final minute to give the Celtics the lead after they had trailed by three. But that should say it all. None of their jump shots were going in. The only bucket they got was when they drew up a play for Tatum to go from the backcourt, basically coast to coast for a wide open dunk. Those were the only that was the only field goal that Boston scored in the half court against this New York Knicks defense in the entire fourth quarter. Because again, the Celtics' only other field goals they made at the beginning of the quarter were off of offensive rebounds and one New York Knicks turnover that led to a three. So just another rough blown game by the Boston Celtics here in this series. And again, got to give a lot of credit to the New York Knicks defense for making things tough, especially down the stretch when Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby kind of went tag team to stop Jason Tatum on the final play. But in the end, again, you got to give credit to the Knicks defense, but it's also the Celtics just missing a ton of threes and not going to any other game plan. Back to back games that this happens. And, you're obviously going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they are the defending champions and they've played this same way for the last, few seasons. And that's one of the big reasons why they won a championship, because they made a lot of these threes and they just had the overall talent that was better. But the New York Knicks have made it clear that they are going to fight. They're going to fight. I mean, I notoriously said on this podcast, we could take a look at the series predictions coming in. Nick and I both had Boston winning this in 5. Joey had the Celtics in 6. Jackson actually picked the Knicks in 6, which looks pretty good right now. And Nick and I both said we'd both be extremely shocked if this went further than Boston in 5. And New York has come in and taken both road games in Boston. It's been incredible. Um, New York is now what 5-0 on the road in the playoffs. Of course, winning all the road games in Detroit and both of the games here in Boston, which sets up an interesting situation. Of course, heading to Madison Square Garden in New York City for games 3 and 4, because now Boston, obviously, your season's on the line. You're down 0-2, losing both of the games at home. And again, not shooting the ball well whatsoever in these first two games, and now New York finally gets to go home for the first time in a while. They haven't played at home since Game 5 of the Pistons series, which they also lost. So that's the weird thing with this Knicks team. Of course, they are what 1-2 at home because after they won Game 1. They lost games 2 and 5, and they haven't lost a road game yet. Very strange thing with this Knicks team that they haven't played very well in Madison Square Garden. And that hasn't been that best of a home court advantage. And on the Celtics side of things, we've seen this over the last multiple seasons, 4+ years, that Boston is a better road team than home team when it comes to playoff basketball. When you take a look at how things went, of course, in the regular season, Celtics were the best road team in the league, 33-8, and only 28-13 at home. And same thing kind of happened in the playoffs last year. They went 16-3 in the postseason en route to their championship last year, and two of the three losses were at home. In the Game 2 losses to the Heat and the Cavs, only road loss was Game 4 in the finals to Dallas, when they basically, it was a gentleman sweep. Dallas had a crazy historic game, but the Celtics just gave that away so they could win the title at home. At least, that's what it seems like. But barring that, Celtics have played incredible basketball on the road over the last few seasons. So New York has to be wary of that, and they cannot be satisfied with taking, both of the road games. They can't go to MSG thinking that they have this series won already, because the Celtics are the reigning champs. They're still an incredible, incredible basketball team that at the end of the day just hasn't shot the ball well. I'm very sure Joe Mazzulla is going to say probably the same things he said at the end of Game 1, where if maybe 3 or 4 more of these shots go down from 3-point range, they win the game. They're up 2-0, and we're talking about how the Knicks, man, they're not taking advantage of these opportunities when the Celtics are shooting bad. So all the credit to the New York Knicks for making things tough for Boston, but again, they cannot be satisfied even though they're up 2-0, because the Celtics, they're good enough to sweep the rest of the way through, do a reverse sweep, and they end up winning in 6, taking all the games at MSG. So very compelling series now heading to Madison Square Garden for Game 3. But again, another incredible comeback. Third straight day that we have a 20-point comeback in the league. The first two games of this series and Game 2 between Indy and Cleveland. Um, Absolutely incredible. These playoffs just keep on providing incredible drama and theater, especially in the Eastern Conference. But moving on over to the Western Conference, not a whole lot to talk about in this one, because finally a home team won a game in the second round as the OKC defeated Denver 149-106, a 43-point victory to even up the series at 1 game apiece. This game was over in the first quarter. I mean, OKC, the way they came out defensively and offensively, you knew that they were not going to go down 0-2 in this series. The way they just came out and absolutely bludgeoned Denver from the very start. There was no doubt Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had an MVP performance, 34 points on 13 shot attempts. He misses 2 shots in this game. Is a plus 51, I believe the best plus minus in playoff history. Um, all your role players step up, with J-Dub having a bounce back game after he really struggled in Game 1. Isaiah Hartenstein was huge, as that facilitating big. Chet Holmgren got to the free throw line, was big on the boards. Lou Dort on the defensive end was huge. Isaiah Joe hit a bunch of threes. Caruso had his, normal impact case. I mean, this was just your typical OKC Thunder game. I mean, this is basically what you got from them in the regular season, just kind of on steroids, with all the points that they scored in the first half, because we know of the defensive end how incredible they are. But the offense, my goodness, dude. I mean, they scored 87 first half points. They scored 87 first half points, the most in a playoff half in the play-by-play era. I mean, that was something special that the Thunder just came out. And, we're just that good on the offensive end. They finished the game shooting 56% from the field, 44% from 3, making 16 of 36 from three, 33 for 36 from the free throw line. They just play very, very well. Denver, only real bright spot is that Westbrook continues to play extremely well in these playoffs. He had 19 points in this game. You're going to need Russell Westbrook to continue to play like this if you want to have a shot at continuing your success and trying to beat the Thunder here. But this is one of those games where it's tough. I mean, obviously you're in the playoffs, so you don't really want to wash any games away. But this would probably be one to watch. I mean, Jokic fouls out, doesn't even play the fourth quarter. Porter, another struggling game. Jamal Murray wasn't aggressive on the offensive end. Again, a lot of credit to the OKC defense. There's really not a whole lot of takeaways you can take from Denver in this game. And if you're the Nuggets, I mean, we can finally say it now since a team lost, and split. They got the split in OKC, the toughest place to play in the league this year, winning game one. It's basically one of the better, cases of, one of the best case scenarios that you can have, getting the split. And now you head back to Denver after having kind of a wild bit of a road trip, if you want to call it that, after, playing game six in the first round against the Clippers, flying from LA to Denver quickly for game seven and having to quickly, obviously winning that game by a bunch and then quickly coming to OKC. Winning game one was a huge, huge win, of course. And losing this game by 43. I mean, obviously stinks, but this is one I think you just throw away and just move ahead now that you're heading back to Denver. And now things will get interesting now that we're all tied up at one apiece with Denver, holding the home court advantage. But again, incredible performance by Oklahoma City. Really just not a whole lot to say from this game. I mean, it was a 43-point game. They led by as many as 49. Again, they scored an NBA playoff record 87 points in the first half. Not a whole lot to go off of. Just shout out to the Thunder for the resiliency and for being the first home team to win a game in the second round. It's been incredible that the first 7 games of the second round were won by the road team. Just absolutely unheard of. But OKC responding in a huge way to even up that series at 1 game apiece. Only 1 game tonight of second round action, and it is game 2 between Golden State and Minnesota. Golden State winning game 1 without Steph Curry. Big win. Minnesota really struggled offensively in that game. And the guy up there, Anthony Edwards. So we'll see if the Timberwolves can respond, and obviously a big game for them. Don't want to go down 0-2 at home like some of these other teams. Timberwolves will look to respond and even up that series without Steph Curry in the lineup for Golden State, which is obviously a huge blow that he will probably miss the next week or so. You can tell he's crushed with the hamstring injury. So prayers up to Steph Curry for that one. But that's it for me. Quicker recap because of the Thunder dominance, taking care of business against Denver. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA postseason content. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.